everyone, so this is part 2 of my mid-month wrap-up where I'm going to be talking about books that I gave like 3 stars or less. So I'm going to be a little more salty in this video. So, especially the last two. The last two. Oh boy. So, the first one I'm going to talk about, this one's called Rise. This is a part of the Hold series. This is book number 4. Now, this one here is kind of like an up and down series where I'm like, not a huge fan of it. So, this is Claire Kent. Now, this one here started with, the first book started where it was like they were on this prison planet thing. That was the first book. This was the second book? No, the third book. The third book, I believe, had it to where this woman landed on this planet that was very kind of like primal. You know, definitely the people were more like kind of like cave people. And then something happened how many years later, and they ended up having to leave that planet. And I'm like, I don't like the way the writer wrote that. Why did she write it like So this one here is the 4th book in the series, and this one has a character from the previous book. So this guy here is Desh. Now, Desh was at one time on that primitive planet. He ended up getting rescued, and so he ended up somewhere else. And so what happens is this story opens to where they're on a, I guess you could say it's like Earth, but it's like in the future. It's like a futuristic Earth where this woman Talia is basically like, in order to help provide for her family, she needs to basically become an escort, you know, basically become an escort to like these soldiers, there's like this coalition that like basically controls the universe, and they're not good people. And so essentially there's a group of people who essentially want to take this, you know, army military down. So his father, Desh, he's a fighter in here. His father is someone of, you know, power. And so he ends up training to become like this fighter, because he's very much like kind of a weenie on the other planet. He really didn't know how to like hunt and different things like that. The other people had to kind of like teach him how to do that. And so he very much like, if they didn't like help him and give him like scraps and stuff, he probably would have starved, you know. But he did end up getting dropped off on that planet when he was like 16. So, you know, there is an excuse. But anyways, she's essentially like a prostitute where she has to perform like sexual acts and all that stuff on these men. So essentially what you want to do is try to find a man who has like some type of power, like a soldier or someone, you know, in a sense of power, because then they potentially could become her like keeper, where she has more of a, doesn't have to keep scraping by to try to find like guy after guy after guy, you know. She could just have one man that she has to service, you know, essentially. So she meets him, and he's a fighter, and they have like this instant connection. The things that I thought Desh was a weak hero to me. I felt like he was really weak. And he had this sense of like, he's thought of himself as like a martyr, you know, where he's like, I need to do this so that I could go and like help out other people. So essentially he wants to do a suicide mission where he dies. So he doesn't want to form like any connections to people. And he's a virgin. He's never had sex. And for her, she's had like, you know, she had sex before, but it wasn't really that great for her. And so they end up forming this connection. It was a little too quick. They formed a connection. And he like fell for her like hard. And I'm like, dude, calm down, you know? And then essentially, like, after him like falling for her and her falling for him, he's like essentially wants to like, oh, well, I need to go and do this and I'm gonna leave you. And it's like, I was just like, I said, for me, I felt like Talia grew as a character. She became more confident in herself, like the more the book progressed. And he just seemed like he became like more weaker and weaker as a character. And it just like, I was like, dude, really? There's smart ways of like overtaking like dictatorships, things like that. There are ways that you can do it, you know. We've done it plenty of times before, you know. There have been times where, you know, someone's in power. What do? You know? Go to war. So for him, it's like, dude, there are ways that you can do this. You don't have to be like, put all this on your shoulders and do it yourself kind of thing and just do a suicide mission. Obviously, there's a smarter way to do this. You just need to, you know, obviously use that. So I felt like he just, you know, wasn't using his brain enough. And it wasn't until like the last part of it that he actually started smartening up. And I was like, so yeah, I gave this a 3. He definitely was a weak character. Definitely was not a weak character. And you have to really read the whole series. I did not like the second book. There was a second book, I believe, in that series, and I didn't like that at all. I like DNF'd it. Third book I read. Yeah, third book I read. And I liked that one. This one here was like, eh. So this is kind of like a hit or miss series for me. So it's like some books are good and some books are just like not so good. So yeah. So the next book I ended up reading from Claire Kent. This is another one where, unfortunately, I was not a fan of this one. So this one's called Escorted. So it's Anders and Lori. Now, he is an escort. So I said the things that annoyed me in this book was that Lori was irritating. She was an irritating character. Now, she's a virgin. She's about, what was it, like 25 or so? I think she's about 25. And she wants to essentially pop her cherry. You know, wants to get her cherry popped. And she doesn't know any other way to do it other than, you know, ordering herself a male escort. So I felt she was very rigid. Like when you know, like they first started to like do stuff, very rigid, very, I don't know, she seemed very prudish to me, and she kind of really irritated me, like at the beginning of the book. As if she was irritating at first. She wasn't really friendly to Anders, like, she didn't really treat him with respect that well, like at the beginning of it. And I was like, girl, he's doing you a favor. He's going to be breaking your chair. He's going to be teaching you things about sexual situations. You should be a little bit more, I don't know, grateful or not so rigid. Like, if you want to learn, you need to be open to this stuff. And it just seemed like she wasn't really open to it. And I'm just like, then be a nun or something. Be a nun or just don't have sex, you know, just be celibate or something. So to me, it's like, you want to pop your cherry. You want to, you know, get sexual and all that stuff. You need to learn from this person. So you need to be open. You need to be able to learn things, you know? So she was really annoying to me. I said, plus she was shallow because she kept bringing up the fact that the poor dude had gone bald, like at a young age. And she was asking him why he didn't get hair treatments. So I'm like, not everybody can afford to get hair treatments. Plus also some men, unfortunately, like hair treatments don't take to them. So they can't, you know, they can't do that. Some people are able to get hair treatments and it works for them. And then some, it's like maybe they don't have the follicles or something like that. And it just, for some, it just looks, if it's not done right, it can look really bad, you know? Where some men, if they get hair treatment, it almost looks like, you know how doll hair, and you could see like the rooting and stuff. You could see that for a guy. So there's some guys out there who like, they can't afford the treatments to get all the hair stuff for their head. So they just go and like, they're just like Bruce Willis, they're like, fuck it, and they just shave the whole thing, and just don't worry about it. Like, my husband is bald. He started going bald at like 17. It wasn't his fault. I mean, it's through like your DNA and stuff. A lot of times it's through your mother. Usually, like, if your mother's father is bald, then you probably would be bald. And so for some men, it can be a touchy subject. Same thing with like a woman. Like, if you go bald as a woman, do you think that you're going to feel a little insecure about yourself? Because for some people, it's just like they, someone looks at you and they think like you're old because you have a bald head, so they think you're older than what you are. So unfortunately for him, he just started going at like 17. And so she was like, just like constantly like being a little shallow and just kept asking him about it. And it's like, lady, you can see by his reaction, he's sensitive about it. So why would you want to keep bringing it up? Stupid. So I said, then Anders, he starts getting mad when Lori would bring up that she was paying him. And I was like, dude, you're an escort. It's your job. Why are you getting upset because she's talking about payment with you? I was like, what? That's your job. Your job is to sleep with women and get paid. Why are you all of a sudden getting like butthurt about like her talking about payment and paying you and all that stuff? That's your job. So yeah, I was just like, okay. And the sex scenes had the same dialogue. Like, it kept getting repeated where she kept saying like, good, so good. Oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. And I'm just like, can we have other dialogue other than like, oh God, or so good, good, something. You need to have some other communication besides just saying that, So to me, it was like, oh my God, this is annoying. The dialogue during the sex was annoying, especially for her. I was just like, girl, shut up. I was like, shut up. Just take it and shut up. I mean, ugh. Suck it. And like, just like, yeah, I was just like, no. And then there was this back and forth between them that annoyed me as well. I said the ending was cute, so that's why I gave it like a 3 instead of a 2. If the ending was not the way it was, I would have gave this book a 2 because it annoyed me a lot. I did not like this one. The next one was the same way. Claire Kent, I think a lot of her earlier works are not really that good. It's her, she's gotten better obviously as an author, and I would read her like latest works more because those have a lot more character development and the characters are more likable, where a lot of the characters like in her earlier stuff are just not really likable to me. So I ended up reading No Regrets by Claire Kent. This is another one I gave 3. So there is a trigger warning to this. There's a trigger warning at the beginning where a senior dog has to be put down. So she essentially she's got an older dog that is obviously, it's getting old, it's getting cancer, things like that. Certain dogs, when dogs get to a certain age, they really can get to where they can't walk anymore. They're in pain. And it's like, why would you want your animal to suffer? So a lot of times it's better like when they get to a certain age and they can't, like get up anymore and can't walk and they're clearly in pain, that it's better to just put them to sleep because then they're out of their misery. They're not in any pain anymore. So unfortunately, her dog that she had for years was at the brink of passing away. So this young, she normally sees this other veterinarian, but the veterinarian, I guess, was on vacation or something. And so she ends up meeting this younger veterinarian who was, good looking guy. And he has to put her dog to sleep. And now she's devastated because that was her dog that she's had for years, there are animal parents, you know, that are, you know, they essentially think of their animals as like their children, you know? And so just imagine like putting a child to sleep, you know, putting your child to sleep. I mean, it's atrocious. It's horrible to have to put your animal to sleep. So she's devastated by it. And in order to comfort her, you know, the veterinarian, you know, like he sees her again. Like he sees her, you know, he ends up seeing her like while he's jogging, and you know, you could tell like, you know, he's a little bit younger than her. She's like in her 30s, he's in his 20s. And so she decides to like one night hook up with him. So they have like a one night stand, and he essentially tells her like, I can't commit to anybody. I don't want to, you know, develop feelings for you. We're just going to be doing like a friends with benefits type of thing. So that's essentially what happens, is that they start this friends with benefits relationship. So we have the characters of Leslie and Josh. And so I said, this is a one night stand to love romance. I said the characters meet up one night and hook up. Then they decided that they wanted more, so they keep hooking up until they start to have feelings for each other. So then they get together. I said it could have been better. It did lack for me. I do feel like Claire earlier books lack any kind of emotional depth to me, and she's gotten better with her latest books. So yeah, to me, I just felt like that. I felt like it was definitely lacking in a way for me, because I could understand his trepidation about like getting involved, getting emotionally involved, because he obviously had some type of past. He's seen different things, and it's caused him to be kind of very emotionally stunted. And so he doesn't want to get involved with, you know, anybody and get emotional. What happens is they start to develop feelings for each other, and she helps him during a sad time. That's another thing I would say, is that there's like a death in his family, and so that's like another trigger. So besides like a dog dying, there's also a death, you know, in his family. And so she helps him, you know, helps comfort him. And you know, she essentially is like, hey, I need to break things off because I'm developing feelings for you, and you had said like you don't want to, you know, go forward. And he's the one that has to make the effort to show her, you know, hey, I want to be with you. So it just, like I said, it lacked any kind of like really depth between the characters. It was more of a sad, you know, it was definitely more of a darker tone, because it had more sadness to it with like a couple of deaths in the book and all that stuff. So it really kind of made it more of a sad read than anything else, you know, and I needed more of that development, you know, more of that depth to the characters, you know. So that's why I ended up like not really liking the book. I gave it a 3. And yeah, it could have been better. It could have been better in my opinion. So the last two, I think I'm pretty much done reading anything new from this author, because it seems like she's kind of gotten worse as a writer. I don't know what's going on with her as a writer, but she definitely, it's a lot of stuff that I just don't care for. And I just, So the last 2 books I read were both Jessa Kane. So I ended up reading When the Farmer Met the City Girl. I gave this a 2. So we have the characters of Bianca and Dusty. This was beyond cheesy, just based on the title alone, When the Farmer Met the City Girl. So Bianca, they meet on a dirt isolated road. She essentially is like, she's lost, and she's like, you know what, let me just wait until like the sun comes up, and then I can kind of like figure out how to get out of, you know, this area. She's young, like in her 20s. She's still a virgin, and she wants to be an actress. And so she kind of visits with her mom, and her mom kind of like gives her like, you know, like, you're not really doing well with your life. You know, her mom kind of judges her for her life choices. And so she gets, you know, basically stranded out in the middle of nowhere, like farmland area. he comes to her aid, and, you know, he's a big burly guy, you know, and he's a virgin. So to me, it was like, they're both virgins, but yet they cannot wait to be in bed with each other. It was like quick, super quick, of like him at the point of like not controlling himself. And I'm like, really? Really? It just, yeah, it's like almost like someone gave them a drug and they just couldn't help themselves, you know? It's like, you know, we as humans, we do have control over our libidos. And, you know, even if somebody says like, oh, I'm a sex addict, and it's like, well, you clearly need, you know, you clearly need to go through some kind of therapy for that if you're a sex addict. But this, it's like they're virgins. They've been waiting this whole time to, like, you know, have sex. And then once they see each other, it's like they just can't keep, you know, their hands to themselves. And I'm just like, really? It just was like super quick. And I'm just like, you know, no. And then there's like Daddy Kink, where he's like, you know, essentially telling her like, oh, who's your daddy kind of thing. Oh, you know, your daddy's going to take care of you. And I'm just like, it was just really cheesy. And I'm just like, this is so bad. I was laughing with some of this stuff. I'm just like, oh my God. And I didn't highlight anything. The next book, there was a ton of highlights. And then she goes to this casting director, because she goes and she, you know, they get it on and all that stuff that night. The morning she leaves. Also, none of these fucking people ever think of using condoms. You know, he's like, oh, I want to get her pregnant, have babies. And I'm like, you just met this lady and you want to go and have babies with her? Oh my God. It's like, it's the, you know, like I said, it's breeding kink. There was this breeding kink in it, and breeding kink can be good if it's done right. This was not done right. I'm just like, oh my God, this is so bad. And then there was like this, she leaves and goes to this casting director, and I'm like, oh, of course, this is a stereotypical sleazy casting director that wants basically her to sleep with him in order to get this part. And she was like, and then walks away. And then what happens? He goes to the building, and they essentially start having sex in the hall with the casting director seeing it, and then they get into the elevator and start banging it out. And I'm just like, sure. I'm just like, sure, okay, this is like porn at this point. I said, thankfully her books are never long, so I didn't have to DNF or suffer through this one. But dang, the dialogue was really cheesy in this, and the awful stereotype of the farmer really irritated me, where he's like, yes, ma'am, and all this other stuff. Oh, shucks, ma'am, kind of thing. And I'm just like, not all farmers are that way. It was like a stereotypical farmer, you know, and I'm just like, okay. Yeah. Oh, yes. It was not good. I gave it a 2 to be nice. This one here, the next one, As If I Wouldn't Fall, Jessa Kane. Another 2-star. I have like 8 highlights for this, because I had issues. So, the characters are, I think her name is Ayla. It's Ayla, Ayla, and Flint. So this is essentially teens getting pregnant. They're both 18. Breeding kink, and this guy's fucking obsessive. This is obsessive hero. So this guy's been following her around for years. Like basically essentially being her bodyguard without her knowing he's like her bodyguard. And the things that happen in this book, I'm just like, are you kidding me? This woman have like a gold-plated pussy? I mean, I don't understand. Beer-flavored nipples? I mean, I don't know. What is it that this woman has to where it's like, oh, if this guy's not guarding her, she's just going to essentially get tacked from all these other people. And I'm like, really? Really? Come on. So, this was like 6% in. He stares at me for long moments before slowly shaking his head. My angel doesn't cry. His right hand lifts, hovering over my face for several beats, explosions taking place behind his eyes. Then his thumb slides across my cheek, collecting moisture in one warm sweep. My angel comes and tells me her problems, and I fix them. It's about time you figured that out. And I'm like, he's never spoken to her. Ever. Never spoken to her. And now all of a sudden he's like, my angel comes to me so I can fix her problems? What? Like, what? What? Okay. So the next is, this guy acts like, you know, there's like the type of characters of a man where it's like maybe he's got kind of like this wolf inside of him and he just can't control like the alpha wolf, you know, and he needs to like take and mate and all that stuff and get her pregnant and all that. That was essentially like almost like his thinking, but I'm like, there was no wolf coming out. This ain't no fucking paranormal romance or anything like that. So I'm just like, what? What? So he says, control yourself. I repeat those 2 words to myself day in and day out. Whether Isla is in the vicinity or not, I must concentrate on my behavior. Focus on reining in these impulses that apply only to her. Impulses that feel as though they've existed in me since the beginning of time. Get inside of her. Get her pregnant. Claim her forever. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm just like, okay. Oh, God. So it's like 7% in this one. And she goes, your angel? She whispers now. That's right. And he's like, control yourself. The mantra doesn't quite work this time, unfortunately. Not when she's standing so close, looking so effing beautiful, and we're alone. Alone for the very first time. I prop a forearm on the roof of the car and lean down until our foreheads are less than an inch apart. My angel. You've never even spoken to me. I speak to you without words, Isla. And you hear me loud and clear. No, I don't. Oh, yes, you do. Can't help it. I push a little closer until her boobs touch my chest. That's not what the words that yet used. And I hiss in response, finally allowing myself the privilege. It should be the privilege. The spelling, there was so many spelling mistakes in here too. The privilege of touching her forehead to mine. What do I say to you in class? You know, it's like, so she can read his thoughts. It's like, okay, you know, come on. So you're speaking without words? All right. Okay. Oh, God. And so 8%, she goes, I don't understand this, she says. I don't understand what's between us. I'm obsessed with you. I want to put my child in your belly. The mere fact that you exist drives me borderline insane. I'm just like, oh, God. So this is my control falters and I struggle to regain it, but I can't. Before I'm aware of my own movements, I'm grabbing the side of her skirt and yanking her, for JJ, tight against my lap, leaning over her on the hood of the car while she stares up at me wide-eyed. It starts with our wedding and you taking my last name. I look across the seam of her mouth. It ends with your panties, my floor, and the police showing up because you're screaming so goddamn loud in my bed. The neighbors think I must be killing you. Okay, dude. So cocky. So cocky. So it says, if I don't stop this now, I'm going to take her virginity right here tonight. I know how this ends. I swore I'd be the one to learn from the past. I'm not going to saddle this angel with a baby at 18. She'll eventually hate me, resent me. The life will drain from her eyes when she realizes the future she could have had if I ever entered the picture. I've seen it happen, break the pattern, yet he doesn't break the pattern. It's like, dude, you realize we do have control. You can use birth control. You can use condoms. There are things you can do to prevent pregnancy if you just have some, like, I don't know, self-control. There's an idea. So, yeah. I'm like, okay. Like, oh, he just can't control himself. So 54% says her father's going to hate me with every fiber of his being, especially once her stomach begins to swell. At the reminder that she's almost certainly lying about being on the pill, I have to reach down and jack my peen several times. It's so sensitive, harder than it's ever been. My balls feel like they're in a death grip. Holy shit, I am a bastard. Instead of calling her on the lie and being a decent man, I'm gonna lock this girl down so hard she'll never question that she belongs to me. I'll knock her up so fucking good and fast her head spins. My nobility has thinned to nothing in the face of her needs. You're going to make me a daddy, baby? I grunt without thinking, because who could think with a tongue like hers in his mouth? When she looks up at me with slightly guarded eyes, I realize what I've said and rush to correct myself. So, the last one I highlighted, and I was just like rolling my eyes at this point. So the last one is, I have to tell you something, Isla, I say, turning up the speed of my flickering tongue against her bell, keeping at it until her thighs are wrapped around my head and that bud is starting to pulse. What is it, she gasps, yanking at the ends of my hair, pulling me closer, lifting her hips. I've got a real big peen, baby. You know, I pant, trailing my tongue back up the middle of her sweet heaving body, my fist wrapped around the appendage in question. And you're awfully tiny. I might have to force it a little the first time. Force it, she whispers. And it's like, you know what? It almost seems like Jessica Cain is not a woman. Are we sure this is a woman that's writing this? Because she has seemed like she has watched too much porn, possibly? And like porn from the 70s and 80s, because it is cheesy as fuck. This stuff is cheesy as fuck. Oh god, it's so bad. It is so bad. And like I said, the only thing I could say about these books is that they're quick reads. Now, normally a lot of times I'll read like a Jessica Cain if I'm feeling like, you know, like you feel kind of like, I don't know what to read next. Sometimes it's good to like read like a short little novella that's like a palate cleanser. But these two latest ones that she's done, oh, they're atrocious. They're so cheesy. The lines are so bad. And like, oh, I've got a big peen, honey. You know, I'm gonna have to force it in you. And I'm like, besides like women having like, you know, when we have stuff diddled and all that, you know, we can lubricate, you know, instantly, you know, because that's what our lady bits do, is they lubricate. But there is also things called lubrication that you can go and put on, and it will lube everything up, so that way it's not getting forced in, it will slide in. And since women, our vajayjays are meant to stretch because we can have babies. Yeah, that dude being like super cocky, like, oh, I have such a big, you know. I'm like, really? Okay. Yeah. Oh, so cheesy. So bad. So bad. So yeah, I think I'm done with Jessica Cain. Like, I don't think I want to read anything else that she puts out. I might go back to like some of her earlier stuff, like earlier works, but honestly I think she's getting worse as a writer. I just, you know, normally writers get better usually at their craft, but some of them it's like, I don't think maybe they even want to do it anymore, or they run out of ideas or whatever it is. I mean, she is an author where all she does is like novellas. She doesn't do actual novels. So maybe she's just, I don't know, running out of ideas to do. She's getting bored with it or whatever it is. And she's just like getting like more and more gratuitous, you know, as she progresses. And it just seems like, ugh, it's just not good. It's not good. And it's not even like, it's not even good porn. Like if you're gonna, you know, watch that, it's not even good. You know, it's like really cheesy. you know, because there are books out there that are more erotica, you know, and I'd say this is definitely more in the erotica sense than it is a romance. But even erotica, you know, doesn't have that type of cheese, you know? Yeah, it's just... So, that's the ones that I've read so far that I just was not impressed with. I'm not having a really good reading month. I keep getting like duds, and so I'm like, at this point I'm trying to like read something else that's gonna like not be bad, you know, that it's gonna be something more enjoyable for me. And yeah, Jessica Cain, I'm not gonna read any more of her stuff because she just seems like she just keeps getting like worse and worse with her writing. Her earlier stuff I'll probably, you know, pick up and read. Like there are other earlier books of hers that were, you know, pretty decent. You know, for a novella, it's pretty decent. But these here are just like, not good, not good. Yeah, unfortunately, they're not good. But anyways, that's what I've read so far. I'm going to do another video like this for my end of the month where I'll do a part 1 and a part 2 and go from there. Hopefully I will not have a lot of bad stuff for my part 2 at my end of the month wrap up, but we will see what happens. But yeah, that's it for this video here. Have yourselves a good day. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to each other, and I will see you all on the next video. All right, bye.